everyone. Let me know if you can't hear me. It's such a pleasure to be here. And when Cindy and Nicole asked me to speak, I asked them what the crowd was going to look like as far as age, and I started thinking about what do I see that probably is an issue for all of the different women that are here today. I do a lot of work on menopause and perimenopause and PMS, but the one thing in this 27 years of medicine that is kind of universal is sex. So I decided to do a little quick 15-minute tour of sex. Now, if any of you have ever gone to the doctor and told them that you're having issues with your sex life, you've either seen a glazed over expression or you've seen the deer in the headlight expression. And the reason for this is that female sexuality is complicated. I kind of think of, and this might be a little bit of a simplification, but male sexuality is a light switch, off and on. And female sexuality is this elaborate stereo receiver with all the adjustments and the knobs and the buttons. And that's why talking about sex with your doctor can sometimes be so unsatisfying, because you get answers like, well, as soon as the kids are grown, it'll be better. You know, 18 years, I have to wait 18 years, or you just need a little bit more time for yourself, or maybe if you took off a few pounds. And all of those are very unsatisfying answers, and the thing you can do to help is to be a detective about where the disconnect is in your life if you're having some issues with sex. So I'm going to give you some questions to ask yourself to kind of key into where you need to have your focus. And the first question is, how am I taking care of myself? This matters enormously. The way we feed ourselves, the way we move our bodies is part of how we feel about ourselves as a sexual being. And the nice thing about this is that you don't have to say, okay, I'm going to feel sexy again, or I'm going to want to have sex again when I lose 25 pounds, or when I get my legs looking good. It starts changing the minute you start redirecting focus on yourself. So you don't have to reach the 25-pound weight goal. As soon as you start exercising, you feel a little toner, a little trimmer. It may not show on the outside at all, but it shows on the inside, and that's what matters. The other thing is, do I have enough time for myself? And initially, I was going to put this under the category of how are others taking care of me? And I realized, no, this has to be something you take. Nobody in your family probably is going to say, boy, Mom, you need more mom time. I'm gonna carve out an hour of the day, honey, that's just for you. This is something you have to do for yourself, because sex for most of us as women is a going out activity. It's energy flowing out of us. And no matter how much you enjoy it, it is an energy flowing out of us activity. And if every day, all during the day, your energy is always going out, whether it's your kids or your job, your boss, your husband, the last thing you're gonna wanna do with your half hour or hour at the end of the day that is your time is do another energy going out activity. It doesn't sound good. So you have to carve some time out for yourself that isn't sex time, and it isn't grocery shopping time, and it isn't doing the bills time, and it isn't working with your boss time. It's time where you get to spend half an hour, 15 minutes, an hour doing something just for yourself. If you don't do that, it's pretty unlikely you're going to want to have sex when it's an activity that, again, is energy flowing out of you, at least in the beginning. And a lot of women talk about drive, and once I get into it, I enjoy it, but boy, the thought of starting it, again, when we're thinking about starting it, it's an energy going out thing. So you want to have that time where energy's coming back to you, that you kind of fill up that reservoir again. Ask yourself, how are other people taking care of me? One of the things, and I'll speak mostly about partners, husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends in this. In all the sex magazines, they teach people how to give great foreplay. Turn her on with this, get her into it with this. probably what they should do is talk about what it would feel like if he or she said, I tell you what, sweetheart, I'll do the grocery shopping for you this week. I tell you what, I'll fold the laundry, I'll do the next load, you go in, take some time for yourself, or I'll take the kids this morning, you can do whatever you'd like, you know, whether it's stay at home and just enjoy the silence or go and get a mani-pedi, whatever. That's great foreplay. And I think if we could tell our partners anything, it would be that intimacy, that what we need to connect with somebody, that's not just a physical act that takes place between here and here. That's something, that's the way they treat us all the time. And I remember a few years ago, my husband and I were on a vacation. And out of the blue, he started giving me a foot rub. And there was no quid pro quo, no, I tell you what, I'll give you a foot rub if you do this for me. Where the whole time during your foot rub, you're thinking about what you're going to have to be doing. You can't relax. I tell you, that was the best foreplay, because all of a sudden, this act of kindness, this act of nurturing me, it made me see him in a whole new light. And I think if you're talking, if your partner is dissatisfied, if you're dissatisfied about your sex life, talk to them about not oral skills, but how they can help you free up some time in your day, how they can nurture you. As women, I don't think we consciously withhold sex when we're having problems in our relationship with intimacy, but I do think we subconsciously do it. We don't feel like having sex or being intimate with somebody that isn't being good to us. And so that's the next question, is how am I being treated by others? The third question is, am I on any medications that are messing with my sex life? And when I thought about the number of young women at this, I think one of the medications that people don't realize can really mess with your sex life is birth control pills. If any of you have ever been put on birth control pills for acne, this is how birth control pills work with acne. They suck up, like a sponge, all of your free testosterone. And testosterone is our libido hormone. So testosterone causes acne. So birth control pills work great for acne. They're very hard on sex drive. I remember years ago, I was in the middle of a torrid relationship, and I went on the pill, and it was like someone turned a light switch off. I mean, can I read? You know, I think I'll paint the ceiling blue. It was gone. Stopped the pill, and the sex drive came back. So birth control pills affect sex drive. Antidepressants affect sex drive, both drive and the ability to orgasm. Oftentimes with an antidepressant, you can kind of get right here, but you can't get over the hill, and it's an incredibly frustrating thing. And if it's happening, it's worth a conversation with your practitioner to see if there's something that can be adjusted. Is there some way we can approach this without medications? Is there a different antidepressant that I can use? There is one and only one antidepressant that doesn't mess with sex, and that's Wellbutrin. So, you know, maybe would that be a good medication choice for me? High blood pressure medicines can cause problems with sex drive. Antihistamines, if you're an allergy sufferer and you take a lot of antihistamines this time of year, those are drying, and vaginal dryness causes pain. Which leads me to my next one. Does sex hurt? We're human. Unless you're a masochist, you do not want to put energy towards something that hurts. There's no way that those two go together. And painful sex can be from menopause, it can be from vaginal dryness from being postpartum and breastfeeding where estrogen levels are low. It can be from vaginal dryness from antihistamines. So if sex hurts, the first thing you start working on is fixing that. The sex drive will follow. The next thing you ask yourself is, are my hormones balanced? Do I have a condition that's going to affect my hormones that's going to affect my sex drive? We need estrogen to be sexually receptive. I call estrogen the Marilyn Monroe of hormones. Think of that body type of Marilyn Monroe. Estrogen kind of opens us up to sex. Plus, it lubricates. Without estrogen, again, you may have low estrogen because you're a very thin athlete, because you're postpartum and breastfeeding, or because you're menopausal. Without estrogen, one, again, sex hurts because the vagina gets dry and won't kind of expand the way it's supposed to, plus sex drive goes down. Testosterone is, we all know about testosterone in men. You've probably seen the ads on TV and the ads from the lawyers on TV. But testosterone is also our libido hormone. It's where estrogen's the receptivity hormone. Testosterone's more the chase them around the table kind of hormone. And testosterone's great for us as far as muscle mass and mood and sex drive, focus, and it can be decreased in situations of a lot of stress, and I'll talk about stress as I continue, but it's something that's worth, if you're having sex drive issues and you haven't been able to pinpoint another cause, and the things I'm talking about today, having your practitioner look for testosterone levels. There's not a testosterone that's FDA approved for women. There's plenty for men. I think that probably has more to do with the cultural emphasis we place on male sexuality, and female sexuality is something we kind of keep way down here. But testosterone is something that can be checked and can be prescribed through compounding pharmacy. Next question, what are my attitudes about sex? What does my culture tell me about sex? I remember I was watching a movie, and those of you in the audience that are over 45 or 50 will appreciate this. I was watching a movie, I think it was the one with Dianne Keaton and Jack Nicholson, and they had sex in the movie. And my kids at the time were teenagers, and they were like, oh, gross, that's disgusting. And I thought, my gosh, that's kind of the message we get from our culture about sex as you get older, is if you're gonna do it, please don't make us watch it. Every message we get about being sexy and being somebody you wanna watch have sex is around a kind of youth-obsessed culture. And it is tough not to buy into that. I'd love to tell you that I never buy into that, but when I fantasize, I'm about 10 years younger in my fantasies. I mean, I buy into it. And so ask yourself if that's a big deal. Oftentimes when women are aging, they frame it as such a negative experience that it touches all parts of their lives, and in particular touches their sexual life. You want to look at how was I raised? Was I raised in an environment where sex is healthy and good, or was I raised in an environment where sex was a sin? Was I raised in an environment where sex was modeled for me? Not that you watched your parents, but that you had affectionate, warm, loving parents, and sex was considered kind of a healthy extension of that. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is sex and stress. Now, Brenda alluded to our reptile brains taking over when we're stressed, and they do, and the reptile brain is our reactive fight or flight brain. And unfortunately, we don't have a little switch that we can hit that says, you know what, I'm not fighting anything, and I'm not running from anything. I am worried about the presentation tomorrow, or I am so worried about how my child is doing in school, or he's being bullied. This same cascade of chemicals happens whether you are fighting off a rapist or you are worried. And the adrenaline and the cortisol, all those things are wonderful adaptations for fighting or fleeing. Increase the sugar in your blood, which is not good for your waistline, but it's great if you have to run from something. They increase your heart rate. They focus you on what's right in front of you. And if you think about it, if you were to walk out the car and someone were to attack you right there, the last things that you would say that you needed to do were, just a moment, I need to take a nap, or just a moment, I need to digest my food, or just a moment, I want to have sex. And unfortunately, those things go in the back seat. Now, it's great if you're a zebra and you just occasionally have to run or fight something, because the sex drive and the sleep and the GI function come back in the front seat. But if you are chronically overstressed, they stay in the back seat. And I could bathe you in testosterone, and it's not going to make a difference if the sex drive is in the back seat. And again, it's a great adaptation if you're an animal and you're actually running and fighting something. It's not so good as human women. And so the answer is not as facile is, well, just reduce your stress. That's as bad of an answer as, oh, don't worry, when the kids grow up, you'll have a sex drive again. But it's to think of different ways of approaching the stressors in your life. We do the best with the things that we have some control over. So that serenity prayer about changing the things you can and accepting the things you can't is huge, because then that puts you in the driver's seat, and the stress decreases, the stress hormones decrease. So that is a whirlwind tour on sex. I could talk about this subject and have for hours. I'll be upstairs if you have any questions, especially if you want to blurt them out about sex. And I would love to talk to you, and I thank you all for your attention. It's been great being here.